Hi, this is Yvonne with Central Kentucky Television, and I'm here today with Joe Keith Bickett. How are you doing, Joe Keith?
I'm doing fine. Yourself?
I'm doing great.
Good.
And Joe Keith has written the book, The Origins of the Cornbread Mafia, a memoir of sorts.
True.
Okay, of sorts. Now, we might want to dig into that part of it here a little deeper, Joe Keith, because of sorts means maybe...
And maybe not.
A little convoluted here or something. What's going on? First of all, give us your background here in Marion County.
I've been a Marion County native my entire life. I was born and raised in Railway, Kentucky. I'm sure lots of people know that area pretty well. I graduated from a little high school in Marion County, St. Charles, before Marion County high school come along. And so, yeah, I was raised here and grew up here and all that.
Grew up here.
Yep.
Now, tell me this. Were you, did you have an eventful childhood? Were you a little precocious, or how did that work out?
It was, I guess, a little different in the area I grew up. I grew up right in Railway, and back in those days, it was pretty rambunctious sort of a town.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it was all good.
Okay. And you have siblings?
Yes, I do. I have 4 brothers and 4 sisters.
Okay.
Yeah. And they all still live around here in Marion County, most of them.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the motivation for writing the book.
Well, in 1989, I went to federal prison with a big bunch of guys from around here. A lot of us was prosecuted by the feds back in '89. And they labeled us the Cornbread Mafia. However, that term come about many years prior to that. And I won't call it falsehoods, but perhaps some of the newspaper articles at that time kind of embellished the story. And once I went to prison, I wanted to kind of set the record straight. And I started doing some journaling at that time, and then it developed into a story itself, you know. Okay.
Now, are you saying that the Cornbread Mafia actually was before your time, and you just happened to fall into that
No,
category?
actually, the term, the origins of the Cornbread Mafia came about in the late 70s by one of the growers. And, of course, I can't reveal that. It's in the story.
Of course. You have to buy the book, right?
You got that right.
All right. All right, then let's keep going here with that. And with that, you were incarcerated. What were you incarcerated for? What was the charge?
Growing and selling marijuana.
Okay. All right. With that, and you wanted to get the story straight, so that's why you wrote the book.
Pretty much, that's what it was. I had a lot of time on my hands while I was gone, and
let me back up just 1 minute. How long were you gone?
Over 21 years.
21. You were gone a long time.
Quite a while. But there was other guys that was even gone longer than I on similar charges at that time. The U.S. Attorney's Office at that time, there was a lot of new laws enacted in that period of time. The Sentencing Reform Act, the Comprehensive Crime Control Act was enacted, and those were pretty harsh penalties back in those days. Since then, they've kind of backed away from a lot of that. I don't know how the new administration will handle all that now.
So you think it was a little harsh the way they did you guys?
I think it was a little harsh, yes, absolutely.
Things could have been better.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are some things that, just a few highlights of the book, some things that we might not know?
I think primarily it focuses on the beginning of the pot industry here in Kentucky and even across the United States. It was kind of offshoot of when the Vietnam War was going on. A lot of the guys that went over there come back with a different outlook on life, and they were exposed to a lot of stuff over there. And I think that's really what was the onset of the marijuana business here in Kentucky. And they come back with those ideas of growing and selling marijuana. Back in those days, economic times were very, very tough. The farmers around this area, if anybody can remember back at that time, was in dire straits on a lot of their farms and everything. So some of them turned to growing marijuana, which was a little more money in their pockets, you know.
A lot more. And you say there was quite a few of you here in this area that were caught and brought in.
Right.
Now, how many of you were like sent to the same prisons, or were you scattered around, or how did they do that?
It was scattered over a couple, 3 years, Yvonne. It started like in actually started in the early 80s, but the key prosecution of a lot of us was in the late 1980s. And a lot of us were in some of the same prisons, a lot of us were scattered around. But there was probably, I forget how many it was, there's probably 60, 70 guys from here in Marion County, Washington County, Nelson County, in the central Kentucky area that was prosecuted underneath the new federal sentencing guidelines.
Now, with the book here, you wanted to set the record straight. Are you saying yay or nay that maybe you weren't guilty, you were guilty, you weren't as guilty? So what are you trying to tell us in the book?
I really don't get into a lot of my federal prosecution in 1989. This memoir goes up to about 1980.
Okay.
And well, there was another prosecution in 1980, but the one I did all the time on was in 89 and 90. I didn't get into that. I'm working on a sequel to that.
Okay, so there's another book.
Yeah, there's another book coming, for real. It will focus more on some of the other individuals that were prosecuted at that time. This book primarily focuses on the 1970s when a lot of the prosecution was state level before the feds got involved. And the subsequent book, the sequel to this one, will focus primarily on the 1980s.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The book, The Origins of the Cornbread Mafia, a memoir of sorts. Now, the person who lived through this, is that the same person that I'm looking at now?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
How have you changed?
Well, I'm not in the marijuana business. I have nothing against the marijuana business. Of course, you know, there's all kinds of states have legalized it, both medicinally and recreational, and there's a lot of debate going on that subject right now. You know, there's pros and cons on that. You know, it just depends on which side of the coin you're on.
Well, should I even ask you where you stand on that?
I think legalization would be a good thing because, you know, it's going to generate a lot of revenue. Lots of people argue that it helps a lot of ailments that they have, you know, seizures, I forget what all it is, that are pretty well documented by the medical community that marijuana does work in a lot of situations, you know.
Well,
So,
but does the revenue balance out the social problems that come with it?
well, that depends on how you look at it. Lots of people might say that marijuana is a gateway drug. Well, you know, you might say a cigarette's a gateway drug or alcohol is a gateway drug. I think that's a myth. I don't believe that one bit, that marijuana leads to anything harder. Like the huge heroin and meth problems that we have here now, I don't think they have anything at all to do with anyone that indulges in marijuana.
Well, you don't believe that starting marijuana will make you more open to trying other things?
I do not think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
I think that the pharmaceutical companies that came out with all the different kinds of pills years ago, the oxycodone and all that kind of stuff, I think that's what triggered our epidemic that we're having today. When so many people were put on different types of oxycodones and different kinds of painkillers, and that's just my position on that. I know everyone has a different position.
Okay, well, we appreciate that. And with this book, a lot of information in here, a lot of information, a lot of things you thought about. Do you have any informants, people who keep you posted about what's going on for the new book, or how do you get your information?
I have talked to some of the guys that was prosecuted at the same time I was, and they're kind of on board with some of this. I'm publishing a book, and in fact, we've had several people to approach myself and different ones on documentaries here just recently, and some of that stuff is in the making right now.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I know that your book, The Origins of the Cornbread Mafia, a memoir of sorts, is on sale. Where can our viewers find a copy?
You can find a copy on Amazon, Carmichael's in Louisville, in Nelson County, 150, Truck Stop, at Mary's and Mammy's in Campbellsville. Let's see, it's All Star has got it over there. It used to be the old Cornerstone, excuse me. Campbellsville University has it. Here locally, there is Cedarwood has it, and we have it at the office. And it's around the community pretty
Okay.
good.
Now tell me this before we go today. Am I looking at an older, wiser man now?
I hope so.
All right. Do you have any words of any words for our people, our young people who are out there now who might be considering going down the same path that you did?
Yeah. Well, I would be very careful about it. You know, it's not all that glamorous and everything to be wound up in federal prison for years, or even worse, you know, to get hooked up on some of these harder drugs that's hitting the communities. You know, you better think twice about that.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Joe Keith, for coming by and talking to us today.
I want to thank you for having me. I
Yes,
appreciate that.
Yes, indeed.
Buy the book, guys.
That's what I was getting ready. We want everybody to get out there and buy one of Joe Keith's books so we can, and we look forward to the next book. Now, I'm going to make you promise me right now in front of all these people that when you write your next book, you're going to come back and talk to me.
I will do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Okay.
This has been Yvonne McNary for Central Kentucky Television.